Morning, everybody. Happy Friday. Have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Krystal?
Indeed, we do. We got some rock star panelists, Emily Jashinsky, Don Calloway, Rachel Bovard, Jennifer Holdsworth-Karp. We also have Congressman Mike Gallagher of Wisconsin. He's going to talk to Sagar about an investigation into the COVID lab leak hypothesis and why that matters. But I wanted to start with something that is unfolding this morning, and I want to do a little bit of full disclosure here. We actually recorded this segment on Thursday,
right
behind the TV curtain magic. So this is a fluid situation unfolding on the ground. However, the governor of Connecticut, who is a Democrat, called in the National Guard to help break a strike if nursing home workers reject the contract that he has put on offer. So basically what happened is this, Sagar. At the beginning of the week, the governor came out and said, look, here's my final offer. We're not moving any further. And he authorized the National Guard to come in. And what he says is this is about helping to make sure that these facilities continue to be staffed. The National Guard wouldn't be actually employed doing anything in the facilities.
Right.
But if some of the facilities are struggling to keep up with the workers on strike, then they would transport some of the elderly who are there to other nursing home facilities where they have the capacity to deal with it. That's what he's saying. He, in his statement, wrote, I authorize you, this was in the official authorization, to immediately call up a sufficient force of members of the armed forces of the state to support as needed the Department of Public Health in protecting the public health and safety in response to any potential work stoppage or strike of workers at long-term care facilities or other congregate settings in the state beginning on or about May 14th. So, on the one hand, people are saying, what is he going to do? But I think what this exposes is that workers, when they ask for even a little bit more, and this is a very difficult and critical job where you've had workers on the front lines contracting and dying from COVID in disproportionate numbers to other industries, the type of tactics and tools that the state has to be able to force a resolution rather than actually using those research sources that you're using to call up the National Guard to pay workers, that to me is it shows how unbalanced the dynamic is that the state has this type of resources and willing to take these militant, aggressive tactics to make sure that there is no strike.
Yeah, I think it's wild that, in terms of the National Guard and more. And yeah, we don't know how the situation is going to be resolved necessarily, but it does just go to show how much power they have whenever it comes to forcing resolution. And a lot of these things, it's a really strange callback to history, but also just goes to show you some of the issues around, even within the Democratic coalition, around how people feel about unions. And you talk a big game, but then whenever it comes down to it, breaking a strike is pretty wild.
Yeah, using the National Guard to break a strike
some 1920 stuff.
Very ominous callback to history is exactly right. And I also think there's a bigger story here too about the care economy and these types of jobs. These are the sectors that have been growing really rapidly in society, some of the fastest growing occupations. And most people who work in nursing home, a lot of them are certified nursing assistants. You have to be credentialed and licensed. So it takes a level of skill. These are brutal jobs. I've had a little bit of chance to have some insight into this industry. And, you're caring for people at the end of their life. You're dealing with very difficult emotional issues. The job itself is extremely physically taxing. As I mentioned before, this year we've obviously seen the type of health risks that are involved, and yet it continues to be a fairly low-paid industry. So one of the things that, the Biden administration and other economists are pushing for is, look, if these are the jobs we have, let's make these good jobs. Factory jobs were not always good jobs. They used to be low paid and dangerous and dirty and brutal. And it was the labor movement that transformed those jobs into good middle class jobs. Well, the same thing could be done here. And so it's remarkable to see a Democratic mayor basically standing a bridge, standing athwart the direction that the Biden administration and other Democrats have been pushing forward, which is to actually make these jobs good jobs. And one other little note on a technicality here. So technically, these nursing home workers are negotiating with the nursing home operators themselves.
Yep.
But because so much of the reimbursement comes from the government, they're effectively negotiating with the state, which is why Ned Lamont, the governor of Connecticut, who used to be considered a progressive, is so directly involved here.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. It's just wild to see, the actual use of force here. But it also highlights, I've always had a problem with that, which is that some of the fastest growing parts of our economy are very low-paid work in terms of, like, people are always like, oh, healthcare work pays well. No, it doesn't. Some people in healthcare get paid
the very
really
top.
well, and it's like a, you know, like most people at the bottom get paid nothing, and then the doctors, even some of the nurses get paid a fortune. And so I think it just goes to show, you know, how disproportionate a lot of it is inside the care economy. Childcare is another example. A lot of child daycare workers, they don't get paid nothing around that compared to what the owners and operators can make in terms of the margin. So it's a big problem.
These people talked all a good big game about essential workers, and then the moment they ask for actually decent living, this is the treatment they get.
There you go.
All right, more Rising for you after this.